Hello, YouTube fam. Get ready for an amazing video experience. It's a pleasure to have you join us as we uncover the secrets of Speaker's Corner. A Speaker's Corner is an area where free speech, open-air public speaking, debate, and discussion are allowed. The original and best known is in the northeast corner of Hyde Park in London, England. Historically, there were a number of other areas designated as Speaker's Corners in other parks in London, such as Lincoln's Inn Fields, Finsbury Park, Clapham Common, Kennington Park, and Victoria Park. Areas for Speaker's Corners have been established in other countries and elsewhere in the UK. In the next segment, we'll be exploring Hyde Park and its implications for our subject matter. Speakers here may talk on any subject, as long as the police consider their speech is lawful, although this right is not restricted to Speaker's Corner only. Contrary to popular belief, there is no immunity from the law, nor are any subjects prescribed, but in practice the police intervene only when they receive a complaint. On some occasions in the past, they have intervened on grounds of profanity. Though Hyde Park Speaker's Corner is considered the paved area closest to Marble Arch, legally the public speaking area extends beyond the Reform Tree and covers a large area from Marble Arch to Victoria Gate, then along the Serpentine to Hyde Park Corner and the broad walk running from Hyde Park Corner to Marble Arch. Public riots broke out in the park in 1855 in protest over the Sunday Trading Bill, which forbade buying and selling on a Sunday, the only day working people had off. The riots were described by Karl Marx as the beginning of the English Revolution. The Chartist movement used Hyde Park as a point of assembly for popular protests, but no permanent speaking location was established. The Reform League organized a massive demonstration in 1866 and then again in 1867, which compelled the government to extend the franchise to include most working-class men. Speaker's Corner is often held up to demonstrate freedom of speech, as anyone can turn up unannounced and talk on almost any subject, although always at the risk of being heckled by regulars. The corner was frequented by Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, George Orwell, Celsius, L.R. James, Walter Rodney, Ben Tillett, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, and William Morris. In June 1972, 3 Irish Republican activists, Joseph Callinan, Louis Marcantonio and Thomas Quinn, were arrested after giving inflammatory speeches at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park protesting the events of Bloody Sunday, in which British troops opened fire on a crowd of civil rights demonstrators in Derry, killing 13. The 3 men were subsequently charged under the Treason Felony Act 1848 with criminal conspiracy and incitement. Most of the charges were eventually dropped, and the 3 were ultimately convicted of sedition and given sentences of between 9 and 18 months in prison. Lord Justice Sedley, in Redmond Bate v. Director of Public Prosecutions 1999, described Speaker's Corner as demonstrating the tolerance which is both extended by the law to opinion of every kind and expected by the law in the conduct of those who disagree, even strongly, with what they hear. The ruling famously established in English case law that freedom of speech could not be limited to the inoffensive but extended also to the irritating, the contentious, the eccentric, the heretical, the unwelcome, and the provocative, as long as such speech did not tend to provoke violence, and that the right to free speech accorded by Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights also accorded the right to be offensive. Prior to the ruling, prohibited speech at Speaker's Corner included obscenity, blasphemy, insulting the monarch, or inciting a breach of the peace. Let's now turn our attention to noted speakers and examine its role within the larger context. The following organizations and individuals, listed here in alphabetical order, have had a well-established history of speaking regularly in Hyde Park. Tony Allen since 1978, Shock Arnold MPC, the Hyde Park Tories, Michael Lord Barker Ayres, as Martin Besserman, Sincere Summer in the Park, Tony Allen, reviewed by Kevin McCarran, Barry Roberts to 2000. The personable and engaging Martin Besserman is the best entertainer to appear at Speaker's Corner in generations. Allow Brotherton MPC the Hyde Park Tories Catholic Evidence Guild since 1918. John Goss see the Hyde Park Tories. Diane Hamilton since as Christopher Horn see the Hyde Park Tories. Jim Hudden as the Hyde Park Tories 1966-1975. Brian Morden Edwards, John Goss, Lou Brotherton MP, Christopher Horn, Sir Ian McTaggart, Jock Arnold MP, William List and others. William List see the Hyde Park Tories. Peter Lumsden, Sir Ian McTaggart see the Hyde Park Tories. Vincent McNabb, Brian Morden Edwards see the Hyde Park Tories. Robert Ogilvie as Derek Prince as Philip Sansom. Norman the Walker Schlund as Frank Sheed with Maisie Wood. J. Smith 1990-2015. Socialist Party of Great Britain since 1904. Donald Soper, Baron Soper Hatton Tash since 2013. Bona Thompson Maisie Ward 1919 c. 1970 with Frank Sheed. John Webster. Get ready for an exciting part as we dive into Southampton. Speaker's Corner. Southampton opened in 1971 as a council tactic to obstruct those who had already started one on the newly pedestrianised High Street. No disruption was caused, but it appeared that Labour Party councillors wanted no one to their left to have a public voice, using the excuse that the pedestrianist area was legally a highway. 5 speakers were arrested the first Saturday, with more as protests grew in subsequent weeks. All were tried and given conditional discharges by right-wing city magistrates. Subsequently, as a second-rate sop, the local council built the present isolated corner in a park several hundred metres away, with it first being used on the 27 November 1971 by an anti-apartheid group. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of Nottingham and discover its practical applications. Speaker's Corner. Nottingham was officially inaugurated by Jack Straw, the UK Justice Secretary, on 22 February 2009. The designated space occupied a new landscaped extension to the city's old market square at the junction of King Street and Queen Street. The large paved space includes the new statue of Brian Clout, the former manager of Derby County and Nottingham Forest, who forged ties between the two cities which were famous for local rivalry. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards Lichfield, Staffordshire. Speaker's Corner. Lichfield was launched in May 2009 with the help of the Speaker's Corner Trust, to much applause. Hundreds of people joined in the celebrations, which featured more than 30 speeches, musical and dance performances, as well as star appearances from Joe Malin and former Coronation Street star Chris Walker. Today's Speaker's Corner is a site for events and activities, as well as a destination for all the community to visit and have their say on topics close to their hearts. Since the launch, a plaque has been unveiled at the site, along with a code of conduct. Plans for the site include a stone plaque marking the spot, as well as a series of annual events. Now, let's shift our attention to Worthing, West Sussex. The Sussex coastal town of Worthing has had its own Speaker's Corner at Splash Point on the town's seafront since the Victorian era. A sign today marks the stand for delivering sermons and public speeches, while another sign close by marks the site by the Old Fish Market where the Salvation Army has preached the gospel since 1886. The Speaker's Corner fell into disuse in the late 20th century. As part of the government's Sea Change programme, run by the Commission for Architecture and the Built Environment, the area benefited from a £500,000 sterling grant to re-landscape the area around Splash Point, including a revival of the Speaker's Corner. Work was completed early in 2011. Get ready for an exciting exploration as we unravel the mysteries of Leeds. Leeds is known to have its own Speaker's Corner at Victoria Gardens on the Hedgerow, in front of the Leeds City Art Gallery, Central Library and Henry Moore Sculpture Centre building. It is a pivotal point in Leeds for justice and anti-war marches, most of which gather and terminate here, as well as for war memorial services due to the location of Leeds's municipal cenotaph. Now, let's shift our focus to Newcastle and embark on an intellectual exploration of its various dimensions. The stepped base of Gray's monument is used as a stage by assorted musicians, preachers and activists. In the following segment, we'll be examining Portsmouth in greater detail. The steps of Guildhall, Portsmouth are often used for protest activity, speeches and activists. Without wasting any more time, let's jump into the fascinating world of Australia. There is a Speaker's Corner in the Domain, Sydney, established in 1878. The speakers talk every Sunday afternoon from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. and have a website. Official outdoor free speech first appeared in the hustings and hanging grounds of Hyde Park, Sydney in 1874. Free speech in this form was banned following a serious riot between Catholics and Orangemen. However, following the formalisation of free speech in Speaker's Corner in London, it was decided in 1878 that the Domain would be the place for free speech in Sydney. In Diary of a Voyage to Australia, New Zealand and Other Lands, published 1896, the Christadelphian preacher Robert Roberts wrote, "On the west side is a feature peculiar to Sydney in all the world, a preaching park. There are, of course, parks in other cities where open-air spouting is practiced on Sundays, such as Hyde Park in London, but there is no city in the world where a park on such a scale is used by all classes of religious people. It is a wooded enclosure, like a nobleman's park in England, kept in capital order, both as regards the turf underfoot and the tall and noble trees that give shelter overhead from the sun. All the sects and denominations use it. There is none of the sense of infradig that associates itself with outdoor preaching in England. Every denomination has its own tree. The various religious bodies hold their meetings sufficiently apart to make no interference one with the other. It is a sort of weekly babble of religious tongues recognized and patronized by the whole community. Other speakers' corners are found in Brisbane outside Parliament House, and in King George Square. In Melbourne, Speaker's Corner was originally held in Berrima, where the original site is still visible. This site has lost some popularity over the years, and Speaker's Corner, now called Speaker's Forum, is currently held outside the State Library of Victoria on Sunday afternoon from 3 p.m. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards Canada. Dedicated by the Earl Mountbatten on 12 April 1966, Speaker's Corner in Regina, Saskatchewan is located on the north shore of Wascana Lake. It serves as a constant reminder of the notion of free speech and assembly, and a tribute to Saskatchewan people who have upheld that heritage. The two lanterns framing the south entrance to the main plaza formed part of the Cumberland screen at the entrance to Speaker's Corner in London. The podia on the main plaza are from the exterior columns of the old City Hall and symbolize free speech and democracy at the municipal level of government. 6 paper birch trees were taken from Runnind Meadow in Windsor Great Park, near Windsor Castle. It was there that King John signed Magna Carta on 15 June 1215. The 10 gas lamps surrounding the corner come from King Charles Street, which runs from Whitehall to St James Park, London, near the Houses of Parliament. They were erected in 1908 during the reign of Edward VII, whose royal cipher ERVII appears on the base of each lamp. Kitchener, Ontario has a small area designated as Speaker's Corner on the northwest corner of King and Benton Street. It has existed since the mid-eras. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into Hong Kong and its impact on our understanding. The City Forum, a public forum, was held weekly on Sunday in Victoria Park's bandstand. The forum brought together politicians, academics and prominent public figures to discuss current issues, and also allowed the public to participate in a session. Each week, a number of secondary schools were invited to bring pupils to the forum to ask questions. The forum was broadcast live on RTHK-TV 31 and was also sometimes held in other locations across Hong Kong, such as Centenary Garden and Morse Park, as well as across different university campuses. The forum ended on 18 July 2021. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of Indonesia and exploring its multifaceted nature. Mass demonstration and speeches are traditionally held on the Hotel Indonesia roundabout Selamat Datang Monument. This venue, however, is located the middle of Jakarta's main boulevard and commercial district, thus causing a severe traffic jam when a rally is held. To accommodate this, Jakarta's provincial government built a small park on the northwestern corner of the Merdeka Square, across the Istana Merdeka, Indonesia's presidential palace. Officially named Taman Pandang Istana Palace View Park, this park is known commonly as Taman Unjuk Rasa Demonstration Park. Let's now zoom in on Italy and uncover the hidden gems that lie within. As a tribute to democracy and freedom of speech, in Loyotico, Pisa, there a small area designated as Speaker's Corner Zangolo del Parlato on a corner of the Vittorio Veneto main square. It's open for the public to speak on Sundays 9 to 11 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. The first speaker was the mayor Alessio Barbaferri, who highlighted the importance of the acts of speaking and listening for a good and effective local governance. The time has come to unravel the secrets behind Malaysia and gain a deeper understanding. The first Speakers Square in Malaysia was established at the Esplanade, Georgetown, Penang on 4 May 2010. It is open for the public to speak on Wednesday and Sunday 6 to 10. The first speaker was Tan Seng Hay, who shared his views on preventing Ascot sports from conducting betting activities in the Penang state. Conditions for use of speakers: squirrel speakers are prohibited from using loudspeakers, megaphones, or any other public address system. Anyone who uses the Speaker's Square to make speeches does so at his or her own risk. The Penang State Government and the City Council of Penang Island will not be responsible for any prosecution or legal action by the police or civil proceedings. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of Netherlands on our broader topic. In the Netherlands, there is a permanently designated Speaker's Corner called the Spreekstein in Amsterdam. Lawfully, every person has the freedom of speech as a matter of right. The Spreekstein is open for free speech 24 hours a day, and was established to allow complete free speech. The Spreekstein has been located in the Oosterpark in Amsterdam since 5 May 2005, and has been erected by a citizens' action after the brutal murder of filmmaker and columnist Theo van Gogh. Plans for bringing the Amsterdam Speaker's Corner online with a permanent camera and microphone are in a phase of installation. In the meantime, the speakers are filmed with a handheld camera. On 1 October 2006, Michiel Smit, a far-right activist, spoke at the Spreekstein. Anti-fascist demonstrators counter-protested, using noise to disrupt the speech. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of New Zealand and its fascinating intricacies. There is a Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park in Auckland at Princes Street, opposite to the University of Auckland. With the foundation laid, let's embark on a journey into Singapore. The Speaker's Corner in Singapore was opened on 1 September 2000 to allow Singapore citizens to speak freely. They are exempted from the need to obtain a police permit as long as they meet the terms and conditions of use. The Speaker's Corner is located in Hong Lim Park, a popular venue for many election rallies and political speeches in the Erzans. Hong Lim Park is centrally located, well served by public transport, and is sited in a high public density area. In 2004, public exhibitions and performances were added to the list of exempted activities at the Speaker's Corner. From 1 September 2008, Singapore citizens can also organize or participate in demonstrations at Speaker's Corner without having to obtain a police permit. With this latest change in policy to allow the venue to be used freely as an outdoor demonstration site, coupled with the liberalization on the use of sound amplification and the extension of operating hours of the venue, the Speaker's Corner aims to address the genuine desire by some Singaporeans for lawful outdoor demonstrations and processions as a means of political expression. Singapore citizens who wish to hold a speech, exhibition, performance, or demonstration at the Speaker's Corner can register with the National Parks Board, which manages Hong Lim Park. Online registration is available on the website. Let's now turn our gaze towards Trinidad and Tobago and explore the fascinating connections it has to offer. Woodford Square in Port of Spain, Trinidad, is also known as the University of Woodford Square, so named by the first Prime Minister of Trinidad, Eric Williams, who gave many speeches here. Another nickname, People's Parliament, comes from the Black Power movement of the Ers. Flanked by Trinidad's Parliament and halls of justice, the square still plays host to speeches of a highly topical and political nature. In the southeast corner of the square, a blackboard lists the day's discussion as well as other important information. The speakers' topics are divided by interest and known as classes. Now, let's redirect our focus towards Thailand and discover its significance in our narrative. An area was set up in Bangkok in the Ers, and quickly became known as Hyde Park, to enable freedom of speech and the airing of political views in Thailand. The area was shut down after student rioting and the lethal intervention of the army, and it is not discussed openly today. In 1955, Marshal Plate Pibble Sundram had visited London as part of an international tour. He became impressed with the Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. Upon his return to Thailand, a Hyde Park space for free speech and assembly was instituted at the Phraman grounds in Bangkok. The experiment was well received and effectively stimulated political debate. The experiment was not appreciated by the government though, and in February 1956 restrictions were imposed on the Phraman Hyde Park. However, during this period the Hyde Park Movement Party had evolved, upholding the legacy of the Hyde Park experiment. In the next segment, we'll be exploring United States and its implications for our subject matter. Tom L. Johnson, the radical reforming mayor of Cleveland, dedicated the northwest quadrant of public square to free speech, as in Hyde Park. Speeches and meetings there were common in the early part of the century. Anarchist Emmett Goldman addressed a large crowd there in 1908. Today the site remains the traditional place for rallies and demonstrations in Cleveland around Mayor Johnson's statue. The University of California at Berkeley had a free speech area in front of Sproul Plaza until 1964. The University of Missouri hosts a Speaker's Corner, referred to as Speaker's Circle. There are only 2 such locations in the entire state of Missouri. As a result of winter semester's visits to England and Hyde Park, Allen University created a Speaker's Corner on campus. No persons from outside the university may speak without a permit. Students are free to speak at any time as long as they don't use amplification, do not disrupt others, do not damage property, and do not cause dangerous conditions. Odd House Square in Washington Square Park, Chicago, was known as a free speech site from the Ers to the Ers. The pedestrian-only area of Pennsylvania Avenue on the north side of the White House in Washington, District of Columbia, has become a de facto Speaker's Corner. Consistent with the principles of the First Amendment, ad hoc public speaking is generally legal in all public places in Washington, D.C., although organized demonstrations require police permits. Inspired by Speaker's Corner, Carl Dean, the mayor of Nashville, designated a space for live music in the southwest corner of Centennial Park, Nashville, calling it Musician's Corner. A free concert series of the same name takes place in this space each year. Let's now turn our attention to books and articles and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Unfinished Business 1964 by Maisie Ward, the story of her and Frank Sheed's meeting at Speaker's Corner and the Catholic Evidence Guild. The Instructed Heart, Soundings at Four Depths 1979 by Frank Sheed, telling his side of the story of him and Maisie Ward and their lives as outdoor speakers. A Summer in the Park, a Journal of Speaker's Corner 2004 by Tony Allen, foreword by Ken Campbell, The Speakers 1964 by Heathcote Williams. The book features William McGuinness, Axel Nahok, John Webster, Jacobus Van Dien, Norman Schlund, Alfred Reynolds and other Speaker's Corner regulars from the Ers Hyde Park orator. Autobiographical Reminiscences 1933 by Bona Thompson. With a Portrait. Forward by Sean O'Casey, Speaker's Corner, an Anthology 1977 edited by Jim Hudden. With a forward by Philip Sansom. But, Mr. Speaker, it would create anarchy. I, Jim Huggan Boner Thompson, The Old Days of Carneny, an examination of the life and times of Boner Thompson, the Hyde Park orator 1991 by R. H. Foyer Round the Marble Arch. Wit and Humour of the Hyde Park Orators 1939 by Fahrenheit. W. Batchelor The History of Soapbox Oratory. Part 1. Prominent Speakers of the Sydney Domain 1994 by Stephen Maxwell. Speaker's Corner, The Conceptualization and Regulation of a Public Sphere 2000 by J. M. Roberts. Dissertation, University of Cardiff. Roberts, John Michael. 2008. Expressive Free Speech, the State and the Public Sphere, a Bakinian Deleuzian Analysis of Public Address at Hyde Park. Social Movement Studies, Journal of Social, Cultural and Political Protest. September 2008. From Where I Stand Hansard, 1987 by Roy Saw a Saint in Hyde Park, Memories of Father Vincent McNabb, OP 1950 by Edward Siderman Were and Ein Reed Holt. Speaker's Corner, London 1981 by Kelvin H. Walker, Photographs by J. D. Schmidt. Answering Back. Donald Soper Answers Your Questions 1953 by Donald Soper. The Domain Speaker. Humor, Politics, Satire, Revolution, Human Rights, Historical, Pictorial, Vicious Wit 1981 by Victor Zammit. Stilled Tongues, From Soapbox to Soundbite 1997 by Stephen Coleman. The Future of Ideas, The Fate of the Commons in a Connected World 2001 by Lawrence Lessig. Only in London. Speaker's Corner, Marble Arch. Past, Present, and Future if any. An Illustrated Sourcebook 2010 by Reinhard Wentz. Speaker's Corner, Teacher Guide. History and Citizenship 2011-22. Speaker's Corner, Where All Speech Reigns Free 2017. Brace yourself for an in-depth analysis as we navigate through media references and its far-reaching implications. Bill Maher appeared at the Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, London, impersonating a Scientologist while filming his 2008 documentary film Rally de Laus. BBC Three produced a programme with Tony Allen on heckling as a lost art for the election in 2005. It was based around teaching two people how to heckle at Speaker's Corner. Episode 24 of Season 6 of the comedy TV series Married with Children had the Bundy family paying a visit to Speaker's Corner. In Omen 3, The Final Conflict, the adult Damien passes through Speaker's Corner, hears a priest there speaking of the Antichrist, and looks uneasy as the priest seems to recognize him. Carl Pilkington interviews a man who regularly attends Speaker's Corner, claiming to have discovered the secret to eternal youth. The interview is an extra featured on Ricky Gervais's DVD entitled FAME. Speaker's Corner appears in one of the early issues of the Grant Morrison comic book The Invisibles, later reprinted in the first Invisibles graphic novel, Say You Want a Revolution. The BBC produced a programme on the Park Police. The lyrics of British rock group Dire Straits' song Industrial Disease from the Love Over Gold album refer to Speaker's Corner. I go down to Speaker's Corner, I'm thunderstruck, they got free speech, tourists, police in trucks. Two men say they're Jesus, one of them must be wrong. There's a protest singer, he's singing a protest song. Episode 3 Season 1 BBC. The Speaker contestants have to speak at Speaker's Corner to prove their public speaking skills. In Half a Life, a novel by V. South. Naples, the main character, visiting London for the first time, expects to see large, radical, excited crowds at Speaker's Corner. Instead he encounters an idle scatter of people around half a dozen talkers, with the big buses and the cars rolling indifferently by all the time, and speakers with odd, very personal religious ideas, such that their families might have been glad to get them out of the house in the afternoons. Graham Bond's song Strange Time, said time from his album Love is the Law Pulsar 1969 contains the lyric In London, England, people take a walk, great times, love times, to Speaker's Corner to tell their talk, great times, love times. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.